Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Justice League Endless Winter, a little tiny mini event, crossover through several books, mostly like the Flash is going to be the next book that this story shows up in. So there's that. This was a really not bad book. I always have to tell you how I feel about it in general. So if you don't like that I said that, feel free. You may leave now. Let's get talking about who made the comic book. I'll talk a little bit about the book itself and some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like. Endless Winter, Chapter 1, writers Andy Lanning and and Ron Mars. How do I butcher that name? Artists Howard Porter. Hi-Fi does the colors, and Anwal Design doing the letters. Mikhail Janin does the cover. That's the cover that I have in my hand. It's a freaking gorgeous book, but at the same time, I was so tempted that variant cover by Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer, who did Murder Falcon, which, God, that comic still breaks my heart to this day. What an amazing story. Go check out my reviews of those if you want. I think it was issue 3 or 4. I cried at one point. Like, it was just so damn beautiful. The part with when they find the bassist and it's off of Cliff Burton. Anyway, that's about that comic book. I'm talking about this comic book, all right? But you know what? Like, having these different variant artists on the books, that's one of the things that reminds you of these other stories and the art in these other books and says, you know what? I need to get this. I need to get this. So, yeah, if DC would have advertised that Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer were going to be doing a variant cover, hey, I would have had to look and hope that I recognized it or open it on the shelf, take it out of the boards in the back, all that nonsense. We're going to have to talk about the so-called advertising practices of DC. But first, the art in this comic book, Howard Porter is a mainstay. This guy is an absolute badass, and he can show you what good art looks like anytime he wants. Unfortunately, there are parts in this book, usually when the Justice League are here. I mean, when it's just scenery or it's the bad guys or some kind of background, whatever, it's gorgeous art. You can't argue with this. You can't. You could try. Your argument will fall upon deaf ears because the people will tell you, no, the art in this comic book is beautiful, except when they're drawing the Justice League. Because when they draw the Justice League, it almost seems like John Romita Jr. had to step in. And you guys know my feelings about John Romita Jr.'s art. He used to be good, and then he gave that interview after he'd been bad, and he said, some people don't like my art. I don't care. Because you know what? I don't get paid for pretty art. I get paid to do the pages in your comic book. And it's like, dude, your father's still alive. How could you? Just, oh my God. I could not imagine his father saying something like that. But you know what? Whatever, man. Everybody's got to lead their own life. And he chose to lead a life of mundane mediocrity, which is as redundantly redundant as his redundant art. And that's what, unfortunately, the way that I see the Justice League in here. I see their faces. They just, like Wonder Woman, look so uninspiring, and Superman, like he's got a great jawline, but yeah, for the most part, Flash, all these guys, they just don't look great. Flash almost looks like he's melting at certain points. All that being what it is, great action scenes in the art. I mean, it's not going to be Kirby-esque, but you can see the influence. I mean, after all these years, Porter still has some things that I don't know, like even if he's asleep, he's still going to do well. And you get that here. I mean, him knocking out, what the heck, Rampage, I think is her name. Yep, Rampage. They're D-listers. The 4 characters in here are D-listers. I have the Imagine X toy for Catman, and it's one of the funniest things imaginable. But Catman shows up here, and that's our introduction to Batman showing up in the book, which is probably my favorite part of the entire book. But probably, because it's tied with the one little bit of Black Lightning in the book. First off, we get a quick little pose of him in the background. Then we actually get Barry Allen talking. And I really wish that with the scenery here and what's being said, that it wasn't Barry Allen. I wish it was Wally West. That, to me, would have made a whole lot more sense. But whatever, I get it. The things that are said are are Barry, but the way that it's said, that's Wally all the way, man. Why you got Barry talking like this? Anyway, I'm confusing my flashes. So Black Lightning showing what a family man thing is actually pretty cool, especially with the way that they showed it in the television series, right? It's like, oh, he's got a failed family. It's like, whoa, man, it wasn't that bad in the comic books now. Don't do Tony Isabella wrong like that. The man knows what he's doing. And honestly, he loves that character more than anything else he's ever done, or probably anything else he ever will do. So seriously, don't treat Black Lightning bad, dude. But he is treated well in here, and I like that. And it's funny because I would have liked Black Lightning actually being on this team. I know it's not standard for him to be on a Justice League team, but I still would have liked to see it, just for whatever reason, for whatever special reason there is. This issue, it felt very tokenesque with Wonder Woman is here and Jon Stewart is here. I mean, like, where was Hawkgirl? You might as well just made this full Justice League animated series, right? Jon Stewart being here, he was clearly only here because, oh, we don't have any black characters to show. But you just went into a thing with Black Lightning. So, I mean, I guess it's good that you showed more than one character, but Jon Stewart had zero personality. I mean, I added it up. And, sorry, 0 plus 0 equals 0. So this was terrible in that regard. Why was he even here? There was no point. I wish they would have given a little bit more life to him. I don't know. There was a lot that was just really sad, that was really missed about this book. Now, there is a very wonderfully basic story, and I'm going to get back to me calling it that in a moment, because we're referenced back to Bendis's Man of Steel, issue number 4. There's actually an editor's note in here. Hallelujah. DC Comics remembers how to do editor's notes. You know, there's only a couple of comic books in DC that still do that to this day. It's mind-numbingly sad that nobody does editor's notes anymore. But these guys, they did the editor's notes. So yay, for real. Anyway, the the Fortress of Solitude was destroyed. Go back and read those issues to understand. I have reviews up for them. That was actually when I was enjoying Bendis's run on Superman. So there's residue left over, certain crystals, the crystal fragments and whatnot. And I think that's a freaking amazing idea. I love the concept of that. And somehow this winds up waking up the Frost King. Okay, banging. Let's do this. So let me get back to the wonderfully basic. You don't need the greatest freaking story plot, the greatest idea ever. You could just reuse. I mean, who was it back in the day who used to say it? Okay, actually, lots of people used to say it. But anyway, the idea that, every 5 years we just rehash the same story. We just tell it with somebody new or something else or some other whatever. And yeah, it's kind of true. It's sad, but it's kind of true. And when you do it differently enough, even the staunchest fans, though they will recognize that story blatantly, obviously, they're still going to look at it and say, but there's a different take on it, so I'm going to judge it based on the merits, not the face of it, right? And when you do that with this story, yeah, it holds up, and it's good. It really is. It's not plot-driven, it's specifically character-driven. It's barely even story-driven as of now, until you get to the very end. And warning, couple of spoilers coming up here, because the writers are bringing in other characters that are going to be famous, even if they're not. You got to remember, between you and me, the comic book aficionados, the fans who know all these characters, the backstories and all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's one thing for us to know Teth Adam, right? There are very few people who hear that who are listening to this review who are probably like, wait, Teth Adam, who the heck is that? So when you find that the character is going to be used in here, it's like, oh, this is actually brilliant because we got the movie coming up pretty soon, right? And he's definitely going to appear in some of the other movies, and we're all hoping he's going to fight Superman at some point. Like, this is a big deal. It really genuinely is. So when they go there and we get to see him, it was actually kind of cool. I liked it. Now, the problem I had with that scene is that I have already seen this, and it wasn't 5 years ago. It was like 5 months ago. Actually, it was more like a year ago. Jason Aaron in his Avengers run, which I fell off of because to me it's extremely boring. This is not a criticism of that or even this. It's just this is my tastes, and this is where it has to be understood. If you like this story, you're entitled to like this story. If you didn't like this story, you're entitled to not like this story. We don't have to attack each other for these things, right? Let's be positive, okay? The lights go out, man. We got to work together. Otherwise, we don't. You don't want that. So the idea that I didn't like the whole Avengers go, we see the Avengers in the beginning days of time and prehistoric and blah, 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 and all sorts of things are taking out of continuity. It's like, wait a second, this, you can have this being the first Ghost Rider, but how is this Black Panther there? Like, that's not Bashenga. You can say it is, but it's not. It can't be. And the idea of having found vibranium at that point, that doesn't make sense. And the Hulk being the Star brand, but then how would it have transferred? Because we saw that the boom and like none of this stuff really makes sense. The Odin knocking boots and slapping uglies with Phoenix. It's really great on the face of it, but you got to harken back to, and I'm basically saying that I didn't like that, so therefore I don't like this either. I fell off the book, and that was one of the reasons why. I tried to get into it, I simply couldn't. But it wrecks continuity. This hasn't wrecked continuity yet, but I can't imagine a scenario where it doesn't. And we need to take advantage of what's out there if people have run out of good ideas or they have a bad idea. You're going to be hard pressed to find people who are staunch Star Wars fans who don't love The Mandalorian right now, right? And what's one of the main things that we say that we love about The Mandalorian? It's the consistency, it's the continuity, it's the little things that other people left out, right? When Obi-Wan said, "Oh, these blasters could have been made by stormtroopers because they have very precise aim. It must have been the Sand People because they're not trained well." One, if you I'm a city boy who went to the military and I learned how to shoot real good, but there were country boys who already knew how to shoot when by the time that I started learning how to shoot. So there's that. Two, we saw they can't hit the broadside of a damn barn, or at least off the side of a freaking sandcrawler, right? So within their own movie, no consistency. But when we see in that same movie, sandcrawlers, they also by Obi-Wan, Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, they travel single file so as to hide their numbers. And then when we see, what was it, episode 1 of, there's a chapter 9 of season 2 over here of The Mandalorian, what happens? We see them in walking in single order. I'm not the only one who noticed that. We all, for the most part, noticed that. We're like, they really do go in single order. It's littles that... Be realistic. That's the stupidest thing in the world to get excited over. And yet we're all freaking out over it, going, yes, because it's those little details, those little stupid details that are going to catch us and we're going to recognize and say, yes. But DC doesn't do continuity because F continuity. We've run out of ideas. So let's just go willy-nilly, right? And that's pretty much what's happened. DC has some really great writers, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of them have given up and it bites. So I see this and I'm worried. Are they just giving up by rewriting the history at this point? You've got Black Label, you've got WonderCon, you got all these different imprints that can do whatever the hell they want. So why write something in main continuity that's going to change the continuity? You can't just say, oh, well, because of a crisis, maybe this used to happen, which is, I imagine that's just what they're going to say here, or they're not even going to bother to address it. It's little things like that that are going to get to us long-term, old-school fans that's just going to nitpick and just sit at the nape of our neck and go, look at it and bemoan. And I really am. I'm looking and I'm bemoaning. This this wasn't bad, but I don't feel that there was a need to start with the whole, hey, there's like 40 fans who really like whatever, the Avengers thing where they go back into Avengers BC, 1 million BC, 1 billion BC, whatever the hell it is. It would be a million, billion wouldn't work. But I just don't see there being that many fans who are into it. And if there are, cool, but why are you going after those fans specifically? How about something, is what it is. So this isn't bad. But as far as great, yeah, I'm not seeing that. It's good. It's got some good moments. And I think that for the most part, if you buy this, you're going to enjoy it, you know? Just, my recommendation is go in with your expectations low. Because if you go in there thinking, oh man, this will be great. No. Plus it's surrounded by event after event after event. Marvel's already got multiple events going on. I mean, really, is this going to be any kind of competition for the King in Black? I'd be shocked. That would depend more on the King in Black than it would on this. You could write one of the best stories imaginable with Endless Winter. But the only way that it's going to do better than King in Black is if King in Black walks into a wall. You know what I'm saying? If Donny Cates just stumbles, trips, and falls on his face and completely screws this event up. Do we really believe that's going to happen? So why even put this up as a comparison? Why even put this up? Especially if you're not even going to advertise it. DC has just been making mistake after mistake, and I just don't understand the purpose of not... I mean, Marvel and DC have copied off of each other for ages, you know what I'm saying, at least for the last 80 years or so. Well, 60, about 60, whatever. So to see that Marvel is doing all these advertisements and DC's just kind of sitting around going, hurdy-doo. Go to your comic book store a day early. You will see a book and it will surprise you. No, it's not. It's really not. This could have been advertised more. And the problem is, I know that they do some interviews of some of the bigger and corporation-owned, what do you call it? Comic book news agencies, if that's what you want to call them. And that's cute and all, but your biggest fans aren't going there to find that stuff. Your biggest fans are the ones that are the old school fans, and they're going to find it through word of mouth. They're going to find it through a YouTube video. And I think that at the very least, more interviews could have been done. It is what it is. It's not that I wanted to get hype for this. It's that I'd want to know about it in advance. I'd want to start researching it more. I'd want to start seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff for it. I don't know if Ron Mars, because he does that sometimes. Mars and who's the other? Lanning. I want to know if they did some kind of a cool interview where they said, hey, you know, when you read this, look for such and such, because how cool would that be? Now suddenly you're getting my juices roiled to go and check something out, right? Unfortunately, all I'm seeing with this is, here's a book dropped in my lap. Read this if you're going to get King in Black also. And So this was okay. This was a solid okay. I really needed something more than that. I'm not going to start reading The Flash because of this. Granted, I did want a reason to start jumping back on The Flash again, but this just really wasn't it. So if you're enjoying this, let me know what you're enjoying about it in the comments by all means. And if you're not liking it, well, tell me what you didn't like about the comic book. You know I read all the comments, so there's that. Also, check out comicbookuni.com, brand new website, just went live today, the day of this release. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Love, peace, hair grease, Comic Book University, comic book alumni, like the video and watch an ad, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, class dismissed.